After a global blackout called the Black December destroyed modern society, survivors formed tribes to survive. When a highly advanced jet crashes near their tribe, Elja finds an artifact known as an Atlantian cube. However, this leads the Crow tribe to attack their home, believing that the cube could determine the fate of Europa. The wounded Atlantian pilot directs Elja to take the cube to the Ark, so he escapes and meets a junker named Moses. His brother, Kiano, and father Jakob are then taken to Brutok to work for the Crows. Meanwhile, Crimson Republic soldiers rescue their sister Leave. To save her family, she promises to free Grieta, an imprisoned Crow warrior called Abazi. However, Leave also asks Crimson Commander David Voss to help carry out the plan in exchange for information. During their drive, Elja asks Moses about the Black December, admitting that his deceased mother was interested in the history. Moses shares that on December 31st, 2029, everything from vehicles to mobile phones and lights went out. He theorizes that the Atlanteans caused it since only their technology survived. To prove this, he points out how the Atlantean cube's technology is beyond anyone is capable of. He adds that no one even knows where the Atlanteans came from, which surprises Elja. In Arenberg, David finds Leave alone in the woods. Her tribe, the Origines, lived in the forest, and David notes that they didn't know about them until they met her. Leave explains how they traded with their neighbor tribe in exchange for keeping their existence a secret. Her mother founded the tribe, and before the Crows attacked, there were 50 of them. Now, she's not sure how many survived. David promises to rescue her family when she finds out how to infiltrate Brutok safely. In Brutok, Kiano meets Linus, who assigns him to package the Crow's substances called Voke. He calls him lucky that he's not in production since workers there become brain dead due to the fumes. In Arenberg, Leave visits Grieta in prison and claims to have been assigned as a prison guard. She promises that soon, she'll get a transponder to unlock her cell. Grieta is suspicious of how fast the woman got a job, but Leave dismisses it. Grieta asks how she plans to escape the camp with her, but Leave returns the question, asking how they can get through Brutok security. However, Grieta refuses to reveal anything else just yet. Leave reports this to David, insisting that she has to convince the woman that she can help her escape. She proposes letting Grieta free while his squad follows them until she gets the information they need. However, David thinks it's risky, so he advises her to gain Grieta's trust slowly. At Brutok, Kiano becomes wary of the guards, so Linus advises him not to look at them, otherwise they'll suspect him of stealing. Kiano then asks for a way out, but the other tells him he's wasting his time thinking of such. During their break, Kiano insists that his companion knows a way out, so Linus shares about the Baj, a battle to the death between workers where the winner will be a free Crow. He adds that Lord Varvara, the woman who led the attack on the Origines, decides who joins the Baj. Elsewhere, Elja and Moses set up camp. Moses enthusiastically uses an automatic can opener to open an expired canned good. However, the contents look like sludge, so Elja catches a fish for dinner. Moses asks what the teen plans to do after they've repaired and sold the Atlantean cube. He doesn't answer as Elja remains conflicted about selling it. The man then asks why he was alone in the wilderness, so Elja admits that he's hoping the cube will give him answers. Meanwhile, the Crimson soldiers find the body of the Atlantean pilot but haven't found the jet or the cube. Since they don't know that Elja has the cube, they're worried that the Crows took it. Because of this, David instructs Leave to convince Grieta to tell her how to get through Brutok security. With that, Leave visits Grieta and gives her food. She insists on knowing how they'll get through Brutok to prove that the warrior can accomplish their mission. When Grieta still refuses, Leave threatens to call the deal off. Desperate, Grieta asks what she wants to know, so Leave questions how she'll get through their city. Grieta assures her that crows aren't beasts, but the other thinks otherwise, given what they did to her tribe. She demands to know more, but Grieta chokes her, accusing her of working with the Crimsons. She throws her off and tells her to get out. Leave reports this to David, who assumes that Grieta won't work with her anymore, therefore they can't rescue her family. Hearing this, Leave decides to leave, but David invites her to join the battle as a Crimson. He promises that eventually, they will attack Brutok and free her family. However, Leave refuses since her family could die anytime soon. In Brutok, Linus drops some tools, so a guard named Gregor beats him. Kiano defends his companion, so the guard beats him down too. While he's down, Kiano sees two workers stashing crystals while everyone's distracted. Later, while everyone's asleep, Kiano discreetly watches the same man toss the stolen goods to Gregor. The following day, Moses and Elja arrive at their destination, but the Junker's ex-lover, Amina, immediately holds them at gunpoint. She asks why she shouldn't shoot Moses, so Elja shows her the cube. She takes them into her home, where Elja is in awe of her technology. He asks if she doesn't live with a tribe, so Amina explains that tribes never worked out for her. She reveals that there are hundreds of tribes around Europa, whereas before the Black December, there were only a few countries. Still, the tribes battled to rule the continent, as if not learning from history. She then confirms that she can repair the cube but demands 10% of the profit. The men agree, so Amina gets started. That night at Arenberg, Liv approaches David and declares that she'll join the army, but she wants to talk to Grieta again since she knows how to gain the woman's trust. At Brutok, Kiano suggests revealing Gregor and the thieves to get a spot at the Bosch. When Linus refuses, Kiano points out that he defended him against Gregor, so he relents. Meanwhile, David takes Liv to Grieta, but she uses this chance to take his gun while the crow helps bind his arms. The young woman explains that waiting to save her family was never an option. She uses David's transponder to free Grieta, though she still keeps the crow at gunpoint. They then climb out of the utility hole, but Grieta slips. Liv drops her gun to help her, but the crow uses this chance to steal the firearm. However, she returns it to Liv, noting that crows always keep their word. Soon, Amina successfully repairs the cube, but can't figure out how to activate it. Elja lets the device scan his eye, like how the Atlantian pilot showed him before, and the cube powers on. It scans the area, then shows an image of an Atlantian walking. The cube then returns to Elja, and Moses demands an explanation. In the woods, Grieta comments on how Liv made herself an enemy of the Crimson Republic. Liv confirms that she'd do anything to rescue her family. Grieta then comments that only crows will be left in Europa in the end, so she asks Liv which side she'll be on when the black wave crashes over. Confused, Liv asks what it means, but Grieta suggests that she join her family in Brutok instead of saving them. She promises to give her a good job there since she freed her. Meanwhile, Linus tells Kiano that Varvara wants to see him. Instead, the man leads him to the thieves, so Kiano runs. One of them kicks him and tries to stab him, but Kiano manages to steal the weapon and kills him instead. However, the guards arrive and apprehend him. In the woods, Grieta explains that they'd have to take the western route to get into the city, and from there, they'll walk into an old subway tunnel that leads into the factory. Hearing this, Liv fires a flare. Realizing that she's been betrayed, Grieta turns and sees Liv holding her at gunpoint before the Crimson soldiers arrive to apprehend her. Back in Arenberg, Liv and David share a celebratory drink as they've successfully gotten the information out of Grieta. Their eyes lock together, and suddenly, they kiss passionately. Meanwhile, a beaten-up Kiano is taken to Varvara, who berates him for killing a worker. The young man argues that he defended himself since he was planning to reveal that they smuggled Volk with Gregor, who denies the accusation. Believing her bossy, Varvara sentences Kiano to death. In Amina's home, Moses interrogates Elja about using the cube, but the lad claims that he was just playing around with it. Their conversation is interrupted when Amina reveals that the cube's fusion module broke, and she can't repair it. This makes Elja panic, so she suggests going to someone who can fix it better. Knowing that she meant Bracker, Moses immediately refuses since he owes him money. He tells Elja to sell the cube as is, but the teen insists on repairing it first. He then storms off, leaving the adults confused. Outside, Moses asks why he needs the cube, wondering if it's about his tribe. Finally, the kid breaks down, and the Junker figures out that the crows killed his people, leaving him alone. Elja admits that he abandoned his tribe, but Moses assures that it wasn't his fault. Amina joins them and hands Elja a tablet from 2029 to trade for Bracker to fix the cube. Overwhelmed by their support, Elja hugs Moses and thanks them. Before leaving, Amina kisses Moses. Elja invites her to join them, but before she can respond, the lights suddenly turn on. Hearing horses nearby, they grab their weapons and find crows arriving. Amina offers to deal with them while Moses takes Elja to safety, promising that she'll join them eventually. With that, she faces the crows, holding them at gunpoint while Moses and Elja run to the vehicle. A crow spots them, so Moses shoots but runs out of bullets. Still, he slams the man with his gun and drives off. At Brutok, Kiano waits for his execution. However, Varvara presents him with bloodied Volk crystals that she found in the man he killed. This proves Kiano's claims, so she turns to Gregor, who then points to Linus and the other thief as his accomplices. Varvara then orders her bossy to execute himself to spare his family from punishment. With no choice, Gregor kills himself, and Varvara orders the execution of Linus and the other thief. Kiano is set free, and the Lord orders her bosses to take him to her estate. The next morning in Arenberg, David shows Liv the Eurocorps' uniform from before the Black December, noting how the Crimson Republic emerged from them. As he gives her a uniform, he reminds her that she must obey orders given by her superiors, which includes him. With a smile, she agrees, so he declares her as Private Liv of the Origines. Afterward, Major Mark presents Liv with their weapons, which include heavy firearms. Instead, she chooses a crossbow similar to hers back in her tribe. Meanwhile, Kiano arrives at Varvara's estate and is taken to the Hakar. There, he meets Deviat, who tells him that he's now part of the Lubovniks. Kiano thinks they're the candidates for the Bosch, but Deviat assures him that Varvara wouldn't risk her favorite workers. At Arenberg, the group plots to infiltrate Brutok. David splits their team into two to be led by him and Merc. They'll destroy the Volk factory since, without the substance, the crows will be weakened. One squad will plant explosives while the other will rescue the workers. However, However, David reveals that he hasn't relayed the information to the capital, so their mission is top secret. This worries the rest, but he assures them that he'll take sole responsibility for any consequences. That night, Moses and Elja set up camp, with a former worrying about Amina. They hear an animal growl, so they ready their weapon and turn the van's headlights on. To their surprise, they find a family with a camel. The daughter shares that they fled from the Altai mountains because of the black swarms. Seeing the two unfamiliar with it, the girl warns that it's coming to Europa, and everyone who sees it will die. At Lord Varvara's estate, she examines her Lubavniks one by one. When she gets to Kiano, she sees that he's not wearing their makeup, so she wonders if he thinks he's pretty enough. Afterward, Varvara dines with them and asks the new recruit if it's better there than at the factory. Kiano doesn't respond, so Deviat apologizes for his rudeness. Finally, Kiano comments that the garden is nice. Thinking how this reminds him of home, Varvara looks at him solemnly and advises him to eat. Still, Kiano insists he isn't hungry. This pisses Varvara off, so she drops a dessert at his feet. She then orders another member to eat Kiano's food like a dog. With this, the young man barks and eats on the floor until Varvara dismisses them, except for Kiano. That evening, Kiano is escorted to Varvara's bedroom and is ordered to unclothe. When he resists, her Bazis remove his clothes for him. The woman then brings him to her bed, but threatens to kill him if he finishes before her. At Arenberg, David learns that Merc is gone. Despite this, the teams get into their vehicles but are blocked as Merc returns with General Francis Cameron, who immediately scolds David for not reporting to him about their mission. The commander argues that he was given full authority of the camp, but Francis points out that his authority should only be within their principles, which warmongering isn't. Accepting his defeat, David takes responsibility to spare his soldiers. Francis charges him with high treason and dissolves Camp Arenberg. A tearful Leave watches as David is arrested, knowing that this also stops her mission to save her family. Meanwhile, Kiano returns to the Hakar, where a jealous Deviat immediately confronts him for being rewarded with a night with Varvara. Seeing his affection for their captor, Kiano reminds him that they're prisoners, but Deviat insists that Varvara is the only one who makes him happy. Soon, Elja and Moses arrive at a trading post. Moses then places several gadgets into a bag to pay off his debt. Inside the building, the Junker insists on having a few drinks before getting to business. Before Moses can enjoy himself, Bracker's men find him and hold him at gunpoint. However, when Moses shows the bag of items, they invite them to Bracker's office. As his companions lay down the items on a desk, Elja notices TV screen showing news footage of the time before the Black December. Moses tells him that Bracker is more obsessed with the old world than him. Finally, Bracker appears, and Moses quickly showcases his items, including Amina's tablet. Bracker points out that the tablet alone would have paid his debts, and seeing he also got other items, he figures that Moses wants something more. With that, Elja asks for a fusion module, and Bracker quickly guesses that they need it for an Atlantian cube. Moses claims that they plan to resell it since the module is useless without a cube. This doesn't convince Bracker, however. At night, Varvara takes her Lubavniks to a Crow nightclub. Kiano observes the people using Vogue and asks about those positioned on the upper deck. Deviat explains that they're Kapitan Ivar's High Lords, and Varvara aims to take the vacant spot in his circle. Kapitan Ivar then arrives, silencing the club. He approaches Varvara and commends her for retrieving the Atlantian jet, though he adds that retrieving the cube would have been better. Varvara promises him that her Bazis will retrieve it. To Kiano's surprise, his father Jakob is now working for Ivar. However, when Jakob accidentally drops his cane, the Kapitan beats him with it. Afterward, the party continues. Meanwhile, Bracker presents the module to Elja and Moses. However, he's convinced that they're willing to pay so much because they have a cube. He then has Elja's bag searched, thus finding the cube. With it in his hand, Bracker then throws the two out of his office. At the nightclub, Kiano worriedly watches his father struggle through his wounds. However, Varvara distracts him, whispering that she likes him. Suddenly, Ivar announces the start of a Bosch, and the crowd cheers. A man and a woman enter the ring below and begin fighting to the death. While everyone is excited, Kiano watches the fight worriedly, which Varvara notices. Seeing the woman get overpowered, Kiano tearfully realizes that this was what he wanted to earn his freedom. Suddenly, the woman beats her opponent and kills him, thus earning her title as a Crow. Varvara explains to Kiano that the woman will become a Bazi, thus being free. This doesn't comfort him, however. In her room later, Kiano helps her get comfortable. She mentions how Ivar's new worker is his tribe's leader, and Kiano confirms, though he doesn't share that Jakob is also his father. She then orders him to remove his clothes, and this time, he complies. As he does, Varvara asks about his tribe, so he shares that a woman named Chloe founded them. Varvara correctly guesses that she was his mother, which he confirms. Kiano reluctantly recounts how raiders killed his mother when he was young, and all they found were her bloodied clothes. The woman then comments that he's carrying a lot of pain, which makes him weak. Suddenly uninterested, she tells him to leave, but Kiano refuses. Impressed, Varvara tells her Bazis to leave them alone. While his siblings face different challenges of their own, Kiano finds himself himself in a new position, which he hopes to use to return to his family.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.